that Baker Mayfield can lead the Bucs over the Lions this time around?
Hell no. Can't see it. Because I think that you're going to have to put up a significant chunk of points to beat this Detroit Lions team. They can run the football. They can throw the football. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean, we know that this brother can ball. We know that Jared Goff has guided the team to a Super Bowl, and he's looked even better now than he ever looked in the Los Angeles Rams uniform as far as I'm concerned. I'm looking at the personnel that they have. I'm looking at them being a top 5 team in the NFL in points per game, yards per game, and red zone efficiency. So let's not forget all of that. And only the second team in the history of the NFL to have 4 players score at least 10 touchdowns. That's David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and obviously Sam Laporta, who I thought was going to be out, but ended up playing last game as well. Didn't make a bunch of noise statistically, but he was in the lineup, so give credit where credit is due. And I'm just looking at it, and I'm questioning whether or not Tampa Bay is going to be able to do a good job of disrupting Goff. I know that Todd Bowles is going to blitz coming off the bus. Makes no mistake about it. He blitzed 54% of the snaps this year. There's no doubt that he's coming and he's going to bring the rain. But Goff is experienced enough, and I think that they'll be able to offset whatever Tampa throws in their direction to the point where they'll be able to put up at least 30 points. Can Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay do it? I believe Tampa Bay has the personnel to do it outside of Baker Mayfield, but I believe Baker Mayfield himself, who I will give a lot of credit for, he has looked good as this season has waned. This is the second time rather, he's guided a team to the postseason. I will give credit where credit is due. He is not a scrub by any stretch of the imagination, and I think he's proven that he belongs to being a starter in the NFL, at least at this particular juncture. But do I believe they're going to go to Detroit? That city, as hyped as they were last week, as hyped as they are now. Keep in mind, guys, and BS, you know where I'm going with this. The Detroit Lions, before last weekend, had one playoff victory since 1957. One, and that was over 30 years ago in 1991 or 92. They were so hyped. And could you imagine how they are 60 minutes away from a trip to the NFC Championship game? That crowd, that environment is going to be bananas. They're going to be ready. They're going to be hyped. And I think it's entirely too much to expect Baker Mayfield to overcome.
I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to say yes. I once famously said, anybody can be beat, right? So you talk about what do you need to be beat, right? You need to be able to pack your run game. Now, Tampa doesn't run the ball as good. But, the Lions are truly deficient in the secondary, and Aaron Glenn is doing the best he can to try and slow teams down. You look about what that game would have been if Stafford was able to be effective in the red zone. You talk about the multiple trips. They moved the ball down there, and they came up with the plays at the right time. But you talk about you have 2 elite receivers on the outside, and then you have 2 suspect corners on the outside when you think about the Lions. Also, when you talk about Goff, when he did struggle this year, throwing multiple interceptions, it was against teams that gets pressure in his face. Now, it's hard to get pressure in his face when you consider that they have one of the best offensive lines. So how do you do that? You add people to the rush. Last week, Jalen Hurts had no answer for the blitz package that Todd Bowles put together. And the difference is this time, Todd Bowles is seeing this offense for the second time. We understand that the Lions are very physical at the point of attack, but Vita Vea and Ghost and all those guys, they're not easy to run against as well. So you talk about with that blitz package, pressure bust pipes. They also make diamonds. We'll see what Jared Goff's made out of this week because it's a week-to-week league.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to agree with Bart. I'll say yes. I'm not picking the Bucs to do it, but they'll have an opportunity for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's always hard. It's hard to beat people twice in one season. After you see them one time, you get a feel for what they did to you the first time, the adjustments that you can make. So I believe Todd Bowles and company will have some new wrinkles and things that they're going to throw at the Detroit Lions. And then ultimately, the second biggest point is, again, that Detroit Lions secondary. This is a secondary that's given up the most explosive plays of any team in the National Football League. Okay? And now you're talking about going up against a wide receiver core that has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And Trey Palmer. They got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have some legitimate weapons on the outside that can not only exploit, but get huge chunks of yards against this defense. Now they're going to listen. They're going to have their hands full with this rushing attack and this offensive line for the Detroit Lions. But I'm telling you that Detroit Lions defense, particularly secondary, boy, they're going to have their hands full against Mike Evans and company.
Aiden Hutchinson, 3-game multi-sack streak. 7 sacks in 3 games. So let's remember that about Aiden Hutchinson. He's going to be all over the place. It's going to be a problem for Baker Mayfield. I will say this. I was wrong about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I said 54%. 41% blitzed on 41% of dropbacks by opposing quarterbacks in the league. It was still third in the league, but nevertheless, it was 41% as opposed to 54%. But I think that, and not only that, Jared Goff has committed about 7 turnovers against the blitz this year. So I guess when you look at it from that perspective, Tampa Bay's defense could come up with some big plays potentially to make things a bit interesting. But if you're asking me if it's going to be Baker and Baker's going to exploit this defense, I find it hard-pressed to believe that's going to be the case, particularly in this environment. I just don't believe it.
Kenny, I'm going to start with you on this one. Would it be more impressive if Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl this season?
Oh, it's Josh Allen, without question. I don't know how impressive it would be for Pat Mahomes because we already assigned that level of greatness to him. My guy been to 3 Super Bowls and won 2 of them, and he's got multiple MVPs. We're not comparing Pat Mahomes to any of his contemporaries. You compare Pat Mahomes to the greatest of all time. So that's Peyton Manning, that's Joe Montana, that's Tom Brady, and that's about the list. You're only comparing them to 3 quarterbacks, and those guys ain't playing right now. That's how good Pat Mahomes is, so nothing would surprise me when you're talking about him going on a Super Bowl run with, a head coach that's won over 100 games with 2 different franchises. Now, Josh Allen, conversely, has some work to do to work himself in that conversation with Pat Mahomes, with Lamar Jackson, and with Joe Burrow. As my co-host Evan Cohen would say on Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, he would say that Josh Allen doesn't have the top line item on his resume. Josh Allen ain't played in a Super Bowl. Josh Allen ain't won a Super Bowl. Josh Allen ain't got no MVPs. So Dog got a little more work to do before I'm going to put him in that conversation with those elite quarterbacks that I just mentioned, which is why him going on a Super Bowl run would be more impressive to me than Pat Mahomes.
Go ahead, Damien.
No, listen, I got to go with Josh Allen as well. And remember, week 12, when the Buffalo Bills played the Philadelphia Eagles and lost in overtime, their record was 6-6. At that point in time, Buffalo's odds of making it to the playoffs were 5%. This is a team that lost 2 big-time players on defense, Tre'Davious White, Matt Milano, fired their offensive coordinator. And Chris, you know this as well as I do. How often does it work out when you fire your play caller during the season where things work out to your advantage?
It don't.
It don't. It rarely works out. Buffalo has been in playoff mode since then. And all they've done is won their games and now have gotten to the point where they are the number 2 seed in the postseason, where Kansas City has to come to Orchard Park and play. And so if Josh Allen were able to seal the deal, finish the deal, and run the table and win to the Super Bowl, think of all the things that him and that team has had to overcome this season. Think about where they have come from 6-6 to making the postseason, winning the division, and ultimately winning a championship. So for me, Josh Allen is the obvious answer.
It's not obvious to me. I get where y'all coming from, and y'all facts cannot be summarily dismissed. But did you watch those receivers in Kansas City this year? I mean, is it just me? I mean, them brothers look like Stephen A. out there. I mean, passes all over the place. I mean, what the hell are we talking?
Stephen A. You can catch better than that, can you?
Yeah, I truly can. I truly can. It's not a first. I mean, just because I had a choking moment on the mound don't mean I can't catch. I ain't blind. I know I got 2 eyes. I see pretty damn good. And I saw the Kansas City Chiefs receivers drop about 35 or 36 passes this year. And so what I'm saying to you is this. If this brother, with a bunch of dudes dropping passes all over the place, beats Buffalo and gets to an AFC championship game a year, I mean, that's just going to contribute to the mystique of Patrick Mahomes. Even when he got dudes that can't catch the ball, somehow, some way, he found a way. whether it's finding different receivers like Rice or Kelsey, or whether it's throwing the ball softer so they can catch it easier, whatever it is, he's going to get credit for it, and that's what I'm saying. Now, you are totally right. You're totally right about Josh Allen and Buffalo, fellas, if we ain't see all them damn drops. But it ain't like we saw like 10 drops one game, another 10 another, and then they spent the rest of the season catching the ball. Oh, no, week after week after week after week after week. These brothers was dropping so many passes, you had college coaches saying, let's show film of the Kansas City Chiefs so we don't duplicate that. That's how bad it was, okay? So I'm just saying, if they transfer to that from that to all of a sudden looking reliable and like they got Velcro on their hands, that's a miraculous turnaround. And I don't think we can ignore that.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, they can't even line up on sides. That's how bad that receiving core is at times. They had multiple penalties for being offsides. I ain't never seen that, and I played over a decade in the National Football League. But Stephen A., here's where I got to push back. And maybe if you had a tie on, you would be a little bit sharper because you would look a little bit sharper. But here's where I'm going with this one. Here's where I'm going with this one. Just because it looks a little bit different with the Kansas City Chiefs doesn't mean that this team doesn't have the formula to compete for a title. Because this is a really good run game behind Isaiah Pacheco, who's like a bowling ball of knives coming downhill. And you have a top 5 defense with one of the best big game defensive coordinators that we've seen in the last 2 decades in Steve Spagnuolo, probably only second to Bill Belichick. And you have Andy Reid. So even if you have that deficiency with the wide receiving core, you still have a really good defense. You still have a really good run game. 2 things that you absolutely have to be able to do well in order to win a title. Take it from 2 guys that are sitting on the set that know how to do it. What I would say is for Josh Allen, he would need to confirm what the people are assigning to him in terms of the level of greatness, his ability to be able to be elite, because I'm not impressed with the 5 wins that he's had in the playoffs. He's beaten Lamar Jackson, which is a quality win, but then Matt Jones, Skylar Thompson, Phillip Rivers, and Mason Rudolph. I'm not impressed. So him going on a Super Bowl run.
You play the people of it. You play the people of it. You play the people of it. That's number 1. You're always telling me you got to play the people that's in front of you. That's number 1. Number 2, yes, pun intended. That was a very unsportsmanlike comment you made about my wardrobe right now. You understand what I'm saying? And I don't appreciate it as unsportsman, pun intended, with your unsportsmanlike show on the radio. Okay, I get you. But I mean, again, Woody and Christine, no surprise there, didn't tell you. The look, first of all, I'm suave, I'm smooth, I look pretty damn good, if I should say so myself. And on top of it all, CC, it's because I've been summoned to Port Charles, my brother. I'm just trying to tell you. And I'm going out on a date on the soap opera. So because I'm out on a date, I got a different look. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
You can't just roll up there all buttoned up, all formal. You got to step back, relax, and put your Mac on. I mean, that's what it is. You see, that's why.
So we're gonna see your true game. That's what we're gonna peep out your true game.
It's the love doctor. He got the love doctor coming out.
You know what I'm saying? Say it if it's true. Say it if it's true. Say it if it's true.
As long as we
that's
don't
all it is.
talk on me together.
That's all it is.
Oh, please, dear God.